Tate here again. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about traction devices, some of the differences between them, features and benefits, why you'd want to use one in one situation and maybe not in another, and some of the basic questions that I get asked a little bit more often than not. When it comes to traction devices, we've got a lot of choices. So in some cases you want to have budget, and some you want absolute brute strength, and these are some of the options here. So on the far side here, we've got a mini spool, and a mini spool is exactly what it sounds like. It's a spool, but it's a miniature version, and it fits inside of a conventional open carrier, replaces the spider gears. So the only real downside to that is that it's only as strong as that carrier. That's going to be your linchpin. What you've got going on with a mini spool is 100% traction to both tires. That spool locks the axles together. Nothing comes loose, nothing breaks free. They are both spinning at the same rate all the time. This is great for a hardcore off-road on a budget, or drag race on a budget, drift cars, that sort of thing, where they need the tires to be locked up and have great traction. Next up, we've got a Spartan Locker, which is an insert type locker and does the same kind of concept as the mini spool. It's going to fit inside of the open carrier. It replaces the spider gears, but this one actually differentiates. It'll unlock and lock. It'll ratchet back and forth when you're off the gas. One tire will break free and turn and allow you to make that corner while the inside tire drives, straighten back out, locks back up again. Again, really great for off-road use. Not that great for street driving. They can kind of kick the vehicle around, push it back and forth a bit. It can be kind of a handful to manage, especially in a short wheelbase vehicle. Also, they only are as strong as the carrier you put them in. I don't really recommend these for anything above, like, say, a 33-inch tall tire, max 35 if you're going to be real gentle, and say a light foot would be good for one of these. Next up, we've got our new Helical LSD. It's a worm gear style limited slip or Positraction. These are very, very smooth. They deliver great traction, but they're really streetable. You can put them in the front of a vehicle or the rear of a vehicle, navigate streets without any major hiccups. It'll give you traction when you need it. Good for both off-road and on-road. It's a good combo setup. It's a very, very good unit. Great pricing on it, and it's going to give fantastic traction without being too much of an aggressive unit or without being too expensive. Next up, we've got a spool, and this is a full spool. So when somebody talks about a spool, it's a solid chunk of steel. It's been cut out and drilled and splined. The axles go directly into it and the ringer bolts on, and there is no splitting up between the axles. They are locked together forever. This is a drag race or heavy off-road setup like the mini spool, but unlike the mini spool, this is its own carrier. The ring gear actually mounts directly to the spool, and that's where it gets all of its strength, is from being directly on that spool. So you have your high horsepower drag race cars, or your great big tires in your off-road rigs, mud drag, sled pull, that sort of thing. The spool is going to be your cheapest, strongest option, and that's why a lot of guys go with that. Next up, we have a locker. This is our Grizzly locker. So kind of like the Spartan Locker, it's going to unlock and lock based off of corners and on and off the gas. But this is its own full carrier option. It's a fully forged case and internals. This is super heavy duty. It's going to be a little more street friendly, definitely a lot more street friendly than a spool, but it's going to be 100% ultimate traction for off-road use or track use. And then if you do go on the street, you can still make those corners when it unlocks and allows you to turn. But absolutely the strongest as far as locking differentials go, your best choice for a locker. Next up, we have a zip locker, and that's air selectable. So just like the spool, when it's turned on, that is locked 100%. The tires are not spinning in any different speeds. They are connected together. When it's turned off, it's a conventional open differential, just like your vehicle had to begin with, most likely. A lot easier to drive around on the street with. They don't cause any excessive tire wear that you can get out of a locker because it's turned off. You're just having a regular vehicle. You're just driving around with a normal differential, and that's turned off. Super great warranty on these. Selectability on the trail is really nice, especially if you're in a really tight corner trying to make that, and then you turn it off, you can turn it right back on again. These things are really, really convenient to have. And just with that selectability and being able to go back on the street, your off-road rig can also be your daily driver. So really nice to have on that one. Next up, we've got the limited slip. This is a Yukon Dura grip, and this guy is going to be your conventional posi that you think about when you think about an old muscle car or a truck that's got Positraction. This has clutches and coil springs that add preload to the clutches. When one tire spins faster than the other, the clutches build friction, transfers power to the other side. It is a conventional limited slip, as much as I've said that over and over again. But it's going to give you the best street performance traction without being too aggressive and making it hard to drive it on the street like a locker would be. So it's a little more of the milder side a daily driver kind of scenario, but with a little more aggression. So if I were to have, like, say, just a half-ton pickup and I'm driving back and forth to work, but I also work in off-road sites, I'd want to have something that gives me traction to both sides without being too aggressive. A locker can be hard to tow with because they want to stay locked up. Limited slips don't do that, so that's, again, one of those better both-world kind of options to use. Over here we have a Powr Lok, which is a little bit ancient by standards, but it's still very relevant. Powr Lok and, say, an 8 3/4 Mopar, really, really nice, aggressive, Positraction, very strong, but very, very aggressive. Take a limited slip like this and crank it up a little bit, say about 25% more. The cross pins and the ramp that you kind of see in here, that actually adds preload to the clutches once you hit the gas. It tightens them up and it makes it very tight, very aggressive posi. So this was more of a track use Positraction with some street use without going this full blown as a locker. So Powr Lok, super aggressive posi, Dura grip, best of both worlds kind of scenario. The difference between those, and then you got the helical style posi, which is, again, a little bit more street and definitely not as aggressive as far as how much it's going to push you around. Again, lots of different options for traction devices and a ton of different scenarios to use them in. But if you call in and talk to your rep, I'm sure that they can walk you through what's going to be best for you and your application. And it's just going to be a better choice all around once you get all that little bit of education to help you figure out which one you want. Thanks again for joining us. We appreciate you coming through, and don't forget to like us on social media.